Welcome, episode 1 of Continuation School with JC. I am your host, Jimmy Cadillo. Glad you are here today. I must say this is a bit different. I am certainly used to talking to a lot of people and business partners and employees and just people that either I mentor or mentor me, and this is definitely a different kind of scene here, something I'm certainly going to have to get used to. I've already predetermined in my head that episode 1 through 100 no one is going to watch. So, we have a free reign for the next 100 episodes to essentially foobar whatever we want to foobar and be able to progress and hopefully get better. So I want to make sure that I point out two amazing people that are in the room with me today. This is something that we've been talking about for, a long time, probably maybe 4 or 5 years. We've been talking about wanting to get to this point. So I have my man Manny over there behind the camera, manning the camera, and he's absolutely amazing. And then over to my left over here, you can't see him. I got Big Rich, who is manning the audio. They're both employees of one of the companies and organizations we run, and they handle all the video production and editing and so forth and so on. So we certainly will make sure that we put their social media profiles in the description in the video that is going to be on YouTube. That way we can make sure that we give them all the recognition they deserve. So I really appreciate you guys for being here. Thanks so much. As we kick off kind of this new chapter, man, in what we're trying to do here. So, all right, so why and why now, right? So that's kind of the purpose of this very first video is, what is my why, right? So if any of you have ever read, Simon Sinek's book, which is fantastic, by the way, Start With Why. It is a great book. I consume a lot of content currently right now. I would say I'm reading maybe 2 books a month, something like that, whether it's in audio format, whether it's in hard copy, whether it's an ebook. That's typically kind of my flow right now is about 2 a month. I've learned a lot about, not only myself, but, things that I can take from these audiobooks. We'll get into that in a different episode. Because I will say I foobarred even some of that. No matter how many books I read, I noticed that I wasn't getting the traction that I needed, even though I had all this information in my brain. And I've realized some things about how to take content that you are consuming and actually be able to utilize that content to get traction, whether it's in your business or personal life. So anyway, so that'll be a topic for another podcast and another episode somewhere between now and 100. So anyway, so let's start with why. So I broke that down into 2 kind of segments, I guess, right? One of them is a bit selfish, to be quite honest with you. So I'll be very upfront. And the other one is probably a little bit more, kind of worldly, I guess, if you want to call it that, right? So let's talk through the selfish reason why I decided to do it now, right? So why now? So let me provide some context and some kind of background here. So for anyone that doesn't know me or is not in my circle, people that are not my business partners or that have either worked for me or talked to me or have been around me that don't know much about me, I'm relatively pretty private. That's kind of one of the other reasons why this was such a big deal for me, because although I enjoy seeing people win at whatever they do, and although I enjoy trying to give as much mentorship as I can and try and pay it forward as much as I can, I will say for the most part, I am relatively pretty private, right? My family is very private. What I do with my kids is very private. What I do with my grandkids is very private. What I do with my older kids and my daughter and all of that, I'm relatively private. I don't tend to boast a lot. This is going to be new. Posting on social media profiles and all of that's going to be something that I'm going to have to really kind of get used to. I'm just not that guy, right? I don't, never made it a point to be kind of like the center of attention kind of type thing. Although I tend to always get kind of put in that situation every time we are either in a meeting or at a conference or something like that. And I'm either with a business partner or people that I know. Everyone always tells me, hey man, like you're the guy, like everybody wants to hear what you have to say. And you have this kind of way of capturing the room and being impactful, which I really do appreciate, by the way. Yeah, man, somehow, some way, I always end up being in that space anyway. So the selfish reason, to circle back to kind of the why. Well, a couple things. Here's what I've realized. I've realized that everyone has a circle of influence, right? And in that circle of influence, you have a reach, right, that only goes so far, right? Whether that's a layer or two far, right? So like, let me give you an example and kind of paint a picture here, right? So my level of reach with like, say, my own kid, right? So I have a 28-year-old son who's married and just had one of my newest grandsons. I have my daughter who's 26, and then I have my son who just turned 23, right? And then I have my 10-year-old. So the other three that are older obviously are already out of the house, right? So my circle of influence with them is not as great as, say, my 10-year-old, right? So why is that? Because I see my 10-year-old every day, right? He wakes up every day. I talk to him first thing in the morning. He is in my house. I take him to school. I take him to all his practices. So my circle of influence and my reach of influence for him is, fantastic, because I am in his daily life every single day, right? So like, let me give you an example. One of the greatest things that I get to do every morning is he always wakes up and he's got kind of like a 2-stage bunk bed. In the bottom, he's got his kind of PC setup. On the above, he's got his bed, right? So every day he wakes up and he climbs down his stairs, and it's like this thing that happens in the morning where I hear his footsteps across the loft that we have upstairs. And I hear his footsteps coming into my master, and he typically will either climb into bed with me or he will go to the loft and possibly turn on the TV, or sometimes he'll jump on the bike. He's a soccer player, so once in a while he'll jump on the bike to get some cardio in. So that's typically what I hear every single day. Now, for the most part, most of the time I'm not in bed, so he's climbing into bed with possibly like my wife, because I wake up typically, 5 a.m. I usually start my workout at 5:15 and so forth and so on. So anyway, he climbs in bed, or I hear the footsteps, and it is a non-negotiable for me. That's one of the other things that we're going to talk about in some of the other podcasts is I have things called non-negotiables. And we'll get into kind of where I pulled that from and kind of how I negotiate those throughout my life. But a non-negotiable is that from roughly about 6:30-ish in the morning to about 8 in the morning, so roughly about an hour and a half, from the moment I give him a shower or get him in the shower and get him ready in the morning and feed him breakfast, and my wife feed him breakfast, he jumps in my car, goes to school. That hour and a half, it is absolutely a non-negotiable. I don't take any meetings. I typically don't pick up phone calls, and I typically don't answer chats or text messages, period, for the most part. Anyone calls me at that time, I'm pushing them to voicemail. Why is that? Because I understand and I realize that my influence reach with him is great because I actually get a chance to talk to him every day, right? So I get to talk to him while he's getting ready. I get to ask him what his day is going to look like. I get to ask him what he wants to accomplish that day. Yes, that's exactly the things that I talk to him about. Yes, he is 10, and yes, I absolutely talk to my son that way. I learned something about raising my 3 other children. And when I had my first son, I was 17. And again, we'll talk through some of those things as well. I learned a lot in raising my kids at such a young age. I was really forced to grow up and go from a boy to a man instantaneously. I tell people all the time, I walked into the hospital a boy. I walked out a man a day later when I had my son and I was 17. I had my daughter when I was 18. So, and I didn't graduate high school, by the way. And I'm just a Compton kid that dropped out my junior year in high school and never went back. Not because I was stupid, but because I made some decisions that impacted me, and I had to do what I needed to do in order to support my family. And it is what it is. And when I look back at it, it's probably one of the greatest things that happened to me. It also is one of the most stressful, times in my life, but nonetheless, I learned a lot, but we'll have a later conversation about that. So my circle of influence and my reach of influence with my son is great, right? So in the process of all of those things, and I'll kind of, again, talk through what that looks like on a day-to-day basis in a lot deeper detail during another episode. But what do I mean by reach of influence? I understand clearly even though I have grandkids, yes, I have grandkids. I get it. I understand it. No, I'm not a grandpa. Nobody calls me grandfather. Nobody calls me grandpa. Okay, just FYI, all my grandkids call me Papa. So Papa's the name. That's what I go by. And I'm not a grandpa. Although my wife did tell me a couple times that I am a GILF. So I should be happy for the fact that I am a GILF. So that's a good part. The good thing, I guess, about being a grandfather at my age. But I'm aging well. So now, as much as I spend time with my grandkids, and, I try to see my granddaughter, who's 6, as often as possible. We go through her dance competitions and whatever she's got going on, and take her to the park and pick her up from school. And we do all of those things, right? And then I have my 2 new grandsons. They're about 5-6 months apart. And although they love their papa, and although I try to spend as much time as I can with them, and although I try to talk to them, I understand very clearly there is a definitive difference between the influence I have on my grandkids and the influence I have on my own son, right? And you could just see it, plain as day, right? When I talk to my son, the things he talks to me about and what his thought process is completely different. And I could tell that a lot of what he talks about has a lot to do with the fact that I have him listen to all the same audiobooks that I listen to, right? So it's a rule. On the way to school, no phone. So he usually is either A, finishing his breakfast, or he's sitting in a car with me. We have the podcast on for, one of the podcast people that I consume, no matter who that may be, or we're listening to an audiobook, or, right now we're listening to, I believe it's, let me make sure I don't butcher this. I believe the name of the book is Shoe Night, which is the memoir for the owner of Nike, and the main guy that built Nike to what it is today. So that's what we're listening to. And then we're also sprinkling in some Marcus Aurelius, and I don't remember the name of his book right now, but another episode I'll mention it. But anyway, so that's the rule. The rule is we're in a car. We're not cell phones. I'm not taking any calls. I don't have any meetings. He's not looking at anything on his cell phone. And we are listening to an audiobook on the way to school. That is the rule. So when I talk to my son and when he talks to me, you could tell definitively that his thought process is just different. It just is, right? And he's only 10. And just to give you an example, we launched a new t-shirt and vinyl company with my business partner, who also happens to be my son-in-law, which again will be a guest on this podcast at some point, because I think there's some really neat stuff about how that company came to be and kind of what's happening there. And that company's kind of scaled rather quickly, which is awesome for him. But anyway, so there's a distinctive difference between the way that my son talks and the influence that I have on him, because I'm able to say, hey, you're listening to this audiobook, as opposed to I don't take my granddaughter or any of my grandkids or my grandsons. I'm probably not going to take them to school every day, right? I don't get a chance to wake up in the exact same household as they do every single day. I don't get a chance to get them ready for school. I don't get a chance to talk to them every second of every day. I don't get a chance to take them to every practice, right? I don't have those opportunities. And because I don't have those opportunities, the reach of influence I have on them is not as good. So great. How do we circle all that back on the why? So why this podcast? Why now? Because here's the reality. The reality is that every kid in America, for the most part, has a cell phone, or has YouTube, or has social media profiles, or has TikTok, Instagram, or whatever they're on. They're on some sort of device where they are consuming some sort of content. And, the Logan Pauls of the world and, some of these other younger YouTubers or whatever channels they're on, they're cool, right? So my grandkids, it's not my little ones, but my granddaughter most certainly, and my son especially, he's 10, they consume that content. And the reason they consume the content is because it's in their face 24/7 all the time. And that YouTube guy is now a YouTube star, right? Like, we live in an environment nowadays where the only way for you to become a personality back in the 70s and 80s and even 90s was you had to be an actor, or you had to be in TV or radio. And guess what? You were one of a million trying to make it into space. Like, so you could come to Hollywood, try and be an actor, and you would get chewed up and spit out, I'm sure. And I've never been an actor, but I would imagine that the rate of success for something like that, for a kid coming from, like, say, Oklahoma, would be absolutely tiny, right? To come to Hollywood and become an actor, right? Absolutely tiny. Nowadays, that's not needed, right? The kid in Oklahoma can turn on any camera. I happen to be in a very fortunate situation, and I'm very blessed to say we've done some things with our businesses where I can have Manny back there set up the camera. I don't know what he's talking about. Like, he talked about all these frame rates, and I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but he does. And I have Rich over here manning audio. I don't know anything about audio. I would have just turned on a cell phone, right? I would have grabbed my cell phone, turned it on, recorded myself, and just put out the video. So I'm very fortunate. But the kid in Oklahoma, even though he may not have a Manny or a Richard, I can certainly tell you he probably has an iPhone or some sort of Android phone that is super beefed up and spec'd. And he can sit that on a stand. He can record himself. He can open up a podcast. It's free. Doesn't cost a dime. He doesn't need any capital. He doesn't need any money. And he can start recording himself every single day, right? That is the power of media nowadays, right? So I understand very clearly that the reality is that my grandkids and my 10-year-old kid, they consume this media on their devices, and it is cool because they're YouTubers. So how do I extend my reach of influence? Not so much over my own son that's 10 that lives with me. How do I extend my reach of influence to my grandkids, right? How do I get them to listen to some of the things that I have to say based on experience, right? Some of the things that I would love to share with them and say, hey, I did this. It didn't work. Do that. Hey, when this happens in your life, take it this way. This will help you kind of overcome those things, right? When you get knocked down, and you will 1,000 times in your lifetime, it sucks. This is how to get through that process, right? This is what I have learned. How do I extend that reach of influence to my grandkids? How do I extend that reach of influence to my business partners, like my son-in-law, this is his first business. He's worked with me for a long time. He's fantastic. One of the most reliable people I've ever met in my whole entire life. Like, literally one of the most reliable people. Like, you can almost take it to the bank. If he says, I got you, don't worry about it, I'm going to go do that, you can almost guarantee he's going to do that. Like, that's how reliable he is. And that's why I decided when we wanted to open up this new company, I decided, hey, it's now time for him to take the reins, and it's time for him to become a business owner, right? Was because of his reliability, right? His biggest reliability is his availability, I guess, if you want to put it that way, right? So anyway, how do I reach influence him? Because again, to my point, I also don't get to hang out every single hour and day with him, right? I get to talk to him as my business partner now. We have meetings, we have conversations, but how do I get my influence reach to reach him every day, right? My business partners on my other companies, right? My telematics tech firm, right? How do I reach influence to my business partner that lives in Texas? My other business partner that lives in Reno? My other business partners here locally, right? We have a software development company. I have an amazing partner there. How do I reach my influence? So that part is a selfish reasons on the why. The selfish reason is very simple. It doesn't matter whether or not anyone else sees this content. It doesn't matter whether this channel blows up or whether we end up making money off this channel. That's not why we're doing it, right? I don't need the money from this channel. We make plenty of money with our companies, right? So this is the way for me to be able to extend my reach of influence with the people that I care about the most, so that one of these days, when I am no longer here, right? And this is one of the only times I'll get morbid, I promise. One of these days I'll be dead. There's literally pretty much one guarantee in life. Well, two, you're going to pay taxes, and one, you're going to pay taxes, two, you're going to die. I'm not afraid of dying, right? So I know one of these days I'm no longer going to be here, right? My son won't get a chance to talk to me. He won't be able to text me or call me. Any of my boys won't be able to text me or call me. We won't be able to go to a Laker game. We won't be able to go paintballing. We won't be able to go golfing. I will not be here. My grandkids won't be able to talk to me. Like, I will no longer be here. So how do I extend my reach of influence when I'm no longer here? Because one of these days when I'm no longer here, when they ask my kids, when they ask my grandkids, when they ask possibly even my wife, what do you remember about Jimmy Cadillo? What do you remember about JC? I don't want them to say, not much. I don't want them to say, let me think about that. I want them to say, I remember everything about my dad. I remember everything about my husband. I remember everything about my papa because he talked to me all the time. Even when he wasn't with me, because of all the thousands of videos he put out, I know who he is. And on every one of those videos, when I am gone, I feel like he's talking to me. That is what the legacy that I want to leave. It has nothing to do with money because, even if you get buried with money, no offense, you're not going to be able to do anything with it, right? So money's not the legacy. I want to leave that behind. I want my reach of influence to go beyond me physically. I want my reach of influence to be kind of all of this, and the fact that my kids will and my grandkids will want to view my content because now dad's a YouTube guy and it's cool. Like, it wasn't cool when my dad was talking to me and he was just my dad, but now it's really cool because now my dad is on YouTube and he's a YouTube guy. And because of that, now I'm going to watch his videos. So that is the selfish reason on why the podcast now, and why that is important, right? So that's my number one why. So here's my unselfish why. So again, I broke it down into two sections on why, right? What my why is. The first one was a selfish, which I just gave you. My second was is an unselfish. So I'll give you a little bit of context and some background on myself so that you understand who I am. And over time, we'll get to know each other. And again, I'm hoping you come along on this journey. I am already humbled, even with 0 subscribers. I'm not after this for the subscribers, to be honest with you. I'm humbled because God has given me more than I ever deserved, period, right? Than I've ever deserved. So now I'm going to try and pay it forward as much as possible. So here's what I mean by that. And here's the unselfish reason on why, what is my why, right? The why is that in my entire lifetime, again, I'm just a Compton kid, born and raised. I dropped out my junior year. I had my son when I was 17. I had my daughter when I was 18. I got in the car business when I was 18. We'll get into the full automotive story later. It's a very interesting one and a lot of really cool things to talk about. But we'll get into that later. So ultimately, I foobarred a lot, right? I screwed up a lot of stuff, man. I've made a shit ton of mistakes, like any human does, right? And I've had some super hard lessons to learn from those mistakes. And we'll get into the micro details of some of those again in different episodes. But I had very little mentorship. I had hardly anyone willing to talk to me. I had anyone hardly willing to not necessarily help me because I'm one of those, like, you got to earn, right? You want to go eat, you got to go kill, right? You eat what you kill kind of type thing. So no one owes me anything. I'm not that guy. Believe me. I want to earn every penny that I've ever made. I've earned it. But at the end of the day, I didn't have anybody to turn to for some of those things and some of the mistakes that could have been avoided or maybe could have been not as bad if I would have had somebody that would have said, hey, here's some of my life experiences. Here's what I've done. And don't do that. Or if you're going to do that, understand that this is kind of some of the things that can happen when you do that, right? I didn't have any of that, right? So for the people that got through, the selfish reason, on, why I wanted to do this podcast, the unselfish reason is hopefully the right one. And the right one is, maybe there's someone out there that maybe is from Compton, or from bad areas, or from any area for that matter. And maybe that somebody dropped out of high school. Maybe there's some teenage kid out there that didn't finish high school, or just dropped out. Or maybe there's a kid out there that's 19 or 20 or 21 and is struggling to kind of find his way, and maybe he didn't finish school, or just had a bad deal there, because it happens, right? If I can say something where there's some impact there for that guy or girl, where you take a look at somebody like me that kind of semi-made it. And again, we're not the biggest organization, right? We're certainly not hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, although we started with nothing. And, we now own, multiple companies that, they range anywhere between, 15 to, $20 million a year in revenue, something like that. Not the biggest, and we're certainly going to continue to grow from there. Our goal is to get to 100 million, which I think we'll do over the next few years here. But ultimately, if I can talk to or say something to somebody that says, hey, this is just a normal dude, right? That the journey starting from the very beginning, here's kind of what I've learned, and you can take just one thing, and that one thing gets you to understand what the value is for yourself, not for me, but for you. Or that one thing that I said gets you to do something that you've been wanting to do for a long time and gets you to a place where you're winning, then I'm good. We're solid. Like, that's it. That's all I can ask for. I genuinely enjoy seeing people win, right? And when I say that, I genuinely mean it. Like, I'm super competitive. Let's be very clear. There's a very big difference between I enjoy people winning and being competitive, right? I am super competitive. I want to beat you. I want to beat you into the ground, and I want to pummel you, and I want to crush you. 100%. That, like, I'm not going to change who I am. That is who I am. I've tried to at times say, hey, maybe I'm a bit too much for some people, and tried to change. Never worked. When I try to be someone other than myself, it's boring, it sucks, and I don't like it. And I don't like that space, right? So over the last few years, I've been very crystal clear as to who I am, and I'm not going to change, period. Like, that's just it. So I am super competitive. I'm not a cheater. I'm not a liar. I'll always do it by the playbook. But I am immensely competitive, right? I absolutely want to win. And if I'm competing against you, I absolutely want to crush you and destroy you. 100%. That's just a fact. Now, with that being said, I believe competition matters. I believe me wanting to crush competition is a good thing, because I believe it brings out the best in the competition. So they should want to do the same thing to me. Again, never illegally, never fraudulently, never in a way that is that where you have to compromise your morals or your principles. We don't do that. But good competition is good, right? That's the way it works, right? That's capitalism. That's the way it's supposed to work. So ultimately, with that being said, even though I want to do all of those things, right, I also enjoy, so parallel to that, I also very much enjoy seeing people win. I want to see you win. Like, I want to see you crush it. Like, I want you to do whatever it is you do. I want you to just crush that, right? I believe the world is big enough. I believe there's enough food on the table. I have a motto that I say all the time. I say, in Thanksgiving, everybody eats. I believe the world is a daily Thanksgiving, right? I believe that literally every day you wake up, you have a smorgasbord to go eat. The food is plentiful. There's food for everybody. So I don't have to worry about the piece of chicken that you just took from the table, because there's literally thousands of pieces of chickens on the table. There's enough for everyone to eat. So I believe you can eat. I believe I can eat. I believe everybody can eat, right? So how can I help you eat? How can I help you kill more food to bring to the table so we can all eat? How do I do that, right? So that is the impact that I want to have. I want to see you win. If there's anything I can do as part of this podcast to help you get there, I'm gonna help you do that, right? So great. So those are my two whys. So now I will go into the why now. So we've talked about this. Oh my gosh. This has been a 5 to 7 year conversation. So here's lesson number 1. Don't talk about it, be about it. It's the very first thing I'm going to tell you. So I'm going to take my own advice. I've been talking about a podcast, and I've been talking about creating this type of content for like the next 6-7 years. And I'm going to take my own advice today. I'm going to be about it. I'm going to stop talking about it, and I'm going to be about it. If I would have started this 7 years ago, could you imagine where we'd be today? Think about that for a second. If I would have started 7 years ago, this content with the amount of the way we're going to format and with the amount of content that we're going to put out, if I would have started that 7 years ago, I can tell you right now, I'm pretty positive and confident in saying that this channel would be a massive channel. The competition wasn't as great back then. There wasn't as many YouTubers back then. I mean, I can get into a million reasons why it would have made a significant difference. But nonetheless, it is what it is. No sense in crying over spilled milk. No sense in getting into things that didn't happen. It is what it is, right? I tell the guys, and this has kind of been our kind of running internal joke for this podcast, we got to do the thing, right? We got to do the thing, right? Like, and I'll give the guy credit. So I got that from, or he said something to that effect when it came to something else, by the way, but I kind of took it and say, hey, that makes perfect sense. So if you guys don't know, Alex Hormozy, Mosey Nation, he has a great podcast channel, or not a podcast, but he has a great YouTube channel. He has just tremendous content, by the way. I'll see if I can maybe link his channel down below. I think it's super valuable, man. The guy is just amazing. What he talks about is amazing. Anyway, so, he talked about, right? Sometimes let's forget about everything else. Like, you got to do the thing, right? If you're going to talk about something, or you're going to say, hey, these are the things that I've learned, you have to eventually, it's not the talking, you have to do the thing, right? You have to provide evidence for what you've been able to do. And if you can do that, people will listen to you. Very simple, right? So we're going to do the thing starting today, and we're going to do the thing a lot. And we're going to do it, obviously, as quickly as possible. However, we understand, we talked about this before the show kicked off today. 100 episodes, or the first 100 episodes of Continuation School, no one's going to listen to them. Ta-da! There we go. There's the bad news, right? For any of you listening, or maybe if this channel ever makes it, and you go back to episode number 1, we are 100% comfortable with the fact that the first 100 episodes, no one's going to listen to. So, with that being said, it almost seems like we could talk about anything, which is awesome, right? So, pressure's off, guys. No one's watching. So, we're all good, right? So, now, why now? The why now is I've consumed enough content, and I've listened to, and I've, seen channels and YouTube channels and social medias and TikTok shorts and YouTube shorts and, every type of short you could possibly imagine, man. I'm shorted out, right? So, there's a guru for everything. There's a guru for everything, right? So, why me? Like, why JC? Why Continuation School? Why this guy? Why this dude, right? A couple things. I'm not going to say all. You have your guys that are true and real, like the Hormozis and some of those guys, right? A lot of the gurus that are on YouTube or have channels, they talk about the success that they've built in, creating this business. And the only success they've had is telling you about how to create the business that they haven't created yet. Like, think about that for a second, right? You're telling me how to be successful to operate and grow a business that you've never grown yourself, but you've become really successful at telling me how to grow a business, but in case you haven't actually done the thing and haven't grown the business, right? They're just great at putting it together and selling that, right? Like, that's what I figured out. And again, not all of them. There's some really great channels and some really good business people out there. Ryan Pineda's another one. Been fantastic. Again, another guy that did the thing and now is talking about it, which is awesome. But for the most part, a lot of these gurus have never done the thing. So when I look at it and I said, shit, I'm not good enough, right? Like, why would someone want to listen to me, right? Like, why would somebody want to jump on this podcast and listen to me, right? Why would they want to do that? And I realized that at the end of the day, although I'm not the richest fellow, and although we're not doing 100 million, I got in the car business when I was 18. I made, $500,000 a year for a long time in automotive. So I would say that's pretty successful. I got out of that business, started my first company 16 years ago with $3,200, took that to about a $10 million a year business, and then got rid of that and then parlayed that into these other 7 businesses. And we now do between $15 and $20 million a year in revenue with zero capital, zero seed money, zero fund money. I've never taken a dime. We as an organization, me and my partners, we've never taken a dime from anybody, period. We've bootstrapped 100% of our growth. We're 100% net positive, and we have zero balance on the books. So we don't know anybody, right? So although not the biggest, I'd say we'd accomplished some things, right? I would say that we're doing okay. And because of that, if a guy can come out on YouTube or YouTube Shorts or TikTok, and he can literally tell me, hey, this is how to build this multi-million-dollar tech firm, and he's never done it, but he's great at just telling you how to do it, and that's what made him a guru. And listen, more power to him. People are listening to that person and he's making money. Listen, again, I enjoy seeing people win. I'm glad you're winning. But you've never done the thing. I'm sorry, but that's why now. Why now is we have that company. We have some of those companies. So we're going to get into and we're going to talk about how we did that. I'm not a software developer at all. I couldn't develop myself out of a paper bag. But what I am good at is recognizing talent. I have an amazing business partner in our software firm, and he's been able to build an amazing software team, right? That is now profitable. So with all that being said, the why now is exactly that. I feel like a little selfishly, I suppose, which I'm comfortable saying, a little selfishly, is I feel like the timing is now because there's a bajillion self-proclaimed gurus, and for the most part, about 80% of them haven't done the thing. So we already did the thing as far as that's concerned. Building businesses, we did the thing. We haven't done the thing as far as like sharing the content. And that's what I want to work on. We want to work on sharing the content. We want to be able to help you as much as possible. We want to be able to throw out some life events, some things that are happening, and be able to kind of take it from there and grow from there, man. So anyways, hopefully that wasn't too long-winded. It probably was a little bit, I suppose. Hopefully I didn't bore you to death. I wanted to provide some context into the whys and the why nows. I hope I've done that for you. For anyone that happens to listen to this podcast, episode number 1 of Continuation School, I hope that we were able to add some value to that. I hope that you were able to listen to some of the things that I said and said, hey, man, that makes total sense. Or, hey, man, it might be worth my time to maybe listen to this guy a little bit more. He may have some things to say that maybe will help me, right? So hopefully that is the case. If it is, I appreciate you very, very much. I really appreciate the support. If it isn't, all good, man. No hard feelings. Like I said, I hope you're winning at whatever it is you're doing. And hopefully as this channel gets bigger, we'll pop up in your feed again. And hopefully you'll be able to then at that point find some value in what we're doing. And then the final thing that I'll leave you with on episode number 1 is why the name? Continuation School. Why the name? Why Continuation School? Well, simple. I didn't finish high school. And when I dropped out my junior year, because I was a minor, they get paid for me going to school, right? So the state funds for the amount of students you have. So staying home was not an option for the school district. So they enrolled me into a continuation school. For anyone that doesn't know what a continuation school, let's be very frank here. It's a school for kids that they believe are kind of a lost cause to some degree. Maybe. So certainly not like Xavier's School of the Gifted. So I wasn't like this, like, Wolverine or had special powers or anything like that. So that's really what continuation school is. And I remember going to the school, and I remember thinking to myself when I was early 17, what am I doing here? And this is a horrible feeling. And the horrible feeling was mostly due to the fact that I knew I put myself there. And then number two, I also knew that I am way smarter than what I am portraying, I guess. And nonetheless, I was still stuck at this continuation school. And the way that came about is I met a guy at my son's school retreat. And funny thing, we got to talking. I hope to have him on the channel as a guest one day because he has a super successful business that's really freaking cool, by the way. So I love to have him on the show someday. But his name is Jay. Peace. He went to the exact same continuation school that I went to. Ironically, like out of nowhere, man. Like, how many people go to the same continuation school? So I thought to myself, that'd be really neat. Because really, at the end of the day, school never ends. Not if you want to get ahead in life. If you want to get ahead in life, learning never ends. Like, you're constantly learning. So I figured it'd be a nice little kind of poke at my history. It's kind of like, Walt Disney with his kind of military plaque upside down at the Disney office. Kind of same scenario, right? Continuation school is where they sent me because they thought I was a reject. And I just thought it'd be a great poke at the name. So hence, Continuation School is the name of the podcast, hosted by myself, because I felt like, hey, that makes perfect sense. There's some history behind that, and that makes it real. And real is what we are after here. So anyways, with that being said, hopefully you found some value. Hopefully I wasn't too long-winded. I appreciate you very, very much. Thank you so much. And see you episode 2.